It's May 21st, 2026. NIO had their first quarter earnings earlier this morning. I haven't even reviewed the transcript yet, but I want to talk about and share why I'm wondering if we won't see NIO come in with a 50,000 or more delivery number in June. More on that in a little bit. But first off, I'm making this call kind of early because I was wrong on this one, but not by much. It was March 31st when I did this video that's shown on screen. And I talked about maybe the possibility of a surprise from NIO with quarter one profitability and, highlighted by the 90,000 ES8 sales, how strong those are, the margins, and then also the unknown things like power swaps and perhaps some surprise of other revenues as well. But since I missed on that, I figured I wanted to come back and keep swinging away with another prediction. So let's go for 50,000 in June, but there's an asterisk. We'll get to that in a second. First off, before we get to that, I want to talk about the stock price because pre-market, this has been happening all week this week. This is the 4 a.m. Eastern time, this first 5-minute incremental window of pre-market trading. And the thing I want to point out is not only was there over 1 million on the volume, which is very big volume for so early in the morning. This is obviously before NIO had done their earnings. At least they hadn't done the earnings call yet. And I'm not sure what time they release things, but this is consistent with what we've seen since Monday. And I did a video about that and sort of like maybe this is the indicator of how things were going to go moving into the beginning of the trade day. And that was the case once again. But here's the other thing I want to point out about this, because right now, as I'm recording, it's about 11:30 a.m. Central Time. And I want to point this out because this first 5-minute incremental window from 4 a.m. Eastern Time, the open was $5.49. The high was $5.60. The low was $5.45. And when I see something like that, I'm always kind of curious if that low is going to end up playing out throughout the course of the trade day. And it was actually, they did a little better than that, taking it a little bit down further on some of these tails to the downside. But right now, as I said, it's about $5.48. Here's the other thing. And hang on. Let me switch what I have at the bottom of the screen. Because the trade volume continues to be the easiest indicator for me to track. And I want to note this number up here, this is only intraday shares traded. So not even 60 million shares traded on what I think to most who are paying attention to NIO even was a surprise and a positive result from the first quarter earnings. And this also sets the table for full year profitability being perhaps even likely from here on out. So I don't know. I'm thinking all this, but at the same time, if we only talk about stock price, the trade volume continues to be very, very low. And unless or until we start seeing big volume days, 100 million shares traded or more, I'm going to continue to believe that we just have very subdued sentiment. And a part of that is, and I'm going to now swap these back out because at the bottom of the screen, now I've got the 3 major growth phases for NIO. And this is as I sort of categorized them or came up with them back in about 2020. And what I wanted was, it's so hard to try and make a prediction of things based on time frames, not knowing how long a company, a startup like NIO, an IDE, an innovative driven enterprise that needs time to build out and do heavy investment, for all that to kind of the noise of the shorts to be overcome by the long-term profitability and the staying power of this disruptive company. And I call it a unicorn because we've never seen a company like this before. And so with that in mind, the growth phases, market awareness, they don't even sell any of the NIO brands in the United States. So that is frankly just a ways off yet. The profitability, in my mind, it's full year profitability, and then that's maintained over the course of time, and we're not there yet. But I do think it's a positive that the last 2 earnings NIO has reported earlier with respect to the cadence compared to what they did in previous years. And if we look ahead, and I'll make a small prediction here, I think that NIO will continue to do these earlier reports, especially considering the momentum and the fact that they are moving towards full year profitability. And that is a goal. So I think that means that not only could we see NIO with a full year of profitability, but I think that they'll hopefully, probably, I'm going to say probably, and again, I'm calling this early, but they usually would report their full year in March of the next year. I think it'll be sooner next year, especially if they get to profitability. Now, what happens if shorts, if they're still in control of things, do they get caught in a squeeze? I have no idea. But I think the reality is, with such a subdued sentiment, so much sort of disinterest, or maybe it's just folks chasing other, shiny objects like semiconductor chips. Everybody seems to want to chase that stuff. And so maybe we've just got longer to wait. Maybe there are some other things that are going to unfold. Maybe there will be more meetings. I think there are 3 more meetings between Trump and Xi scheduled just within the next year. I don't know what the time frame on that is, but perhaps out of one of those, we see something, shift with respect to sentiment. There's a lot happening globally, but rather than dive in and get into too much of that, I just wanted to point out that even today, with a surprise from NIO, you had that big volume right away, pre-market, 4 a.m. Eastern time, over 1 million shares, and it was to the downside. So if we take that as the indicator, just like it's been each day this week, I think all of the trade days this week, 4 in a row, at open, not surprising, we see the sell-off just like we have the other days. So anyway, wanted to highlight that, point it out. But now let's talk about the possibility of NIO with 50,000 from the NIO Group in the month of June. And this is the asterisk. I'm just going to scroll down to this because I was very curious what we would get for the second quarter guidance. And so William Lee said, we expect total deliveries in the second quarter to range between 110 and 115,000 vehicles. Now, my first thought was, that's a good number, but that wasn't even my first thought. My first thought was, that's a pretty tight window considering we have all of June and still, quite a few days, at least a third roughly of the month here in May. But then I got to thinking, well, let's see, they already started the Onvo L80s. So those deliveries have begun. So there will be some from May of the Onvo L80 that will boost numbers. And then they also will be starting the NIO ES9 before the end of May. But even so, I got to thinking, and I don't have it pulled up, but I'll come back to the stock. I'll pull the stock price up while I talk about this, because in April, almost 30,000 was the number. In May, if we see, let's say, a 30 to even a 35,000 number, that still leaves 50,000 plus to hit the guidance. At least it's real close, and maybe even a surprise with more. Again, it struck me that at this stage, they still have such a tight window for that guidance. But I think they have a pretty good plan at this stage and how they're going to get the deliveries out with the new vehicles and the models. And so I'm guessing they have it pretty well fine-tuned. We'll find out. But if that is the case, it just makes me think we're likely to see a 50,000 number in June when we have the first full month of both the Onvo L80 and the NIO ES9 and the NIO ES8, which I don't know because I haven't reviewed the earnings, but I'm hoping that we got an update that the demand continues to be strong for that. On that note, I'll say this much. It's absolutely crushing the competition. The ES8 is, and this is the best way to sort of take the big picture overview on things, is the first 4 months of the year. Look at NIO with that ES8 and what it has done. I mean, it is destroying everyone else. And even if we hop over briefly and look at NIO against all passenger vehicle brands, so even against Mercedes, Audi, BMW with their gas sales, still over 20,000 more. That is a huge statement by NIO. But let's come back because there are a few things to talk about on the BEV, just the battery electric vehicle brand side of things. Now, I was curious about Firefly, and Firefly numbers were just over, I think, a little over 16,000 for the first 4 months. But I also don't know, they may have both price ranges kind of broken up because, like, if you look at Onvo, you've got some sales here and you've also got some over here. And so that could be the case with Firefly, which is why we don't see them ranking in the top 10. However, you obviously have Onvo ranking the top 5 for their respective price range. And there's still some that are even in the higher price range, which is great because, again, I'm thinking in terms of Onvo potentially taking more of the market share from BMW, Audi, and Mercedes. So that's great. I love seeing it. Obviously, NIO with the 3-spot lockdown here as well. And if we go NIO Group, then that would be those together. So that would put it into the 2nd spot. I think it's just a matter of time before NIO continues to climb and hopefully ends up at the number 1 spot here, and then also maintaining this. And I'll be curious what happens with the highest price range because NIO still in the top 5. But we'll see. You know, I don't know if those will change much over the course of time, but I wanted to share this data. Now let's look at the bigger picture, as in there's still a lot of market share to be taken, hopefully by NIO in that upper end price range, the 300,000 RMB and above, especially the one I'm thinking of. And interestingly enough, you've got Audi ranking here in the 200,000 to 300,000 RMB price range. So again, that makes me think that Onvo can definitely take more sales from the German brands that have been so dominant: BMW, Mercedes, Audi, all 3 right there in the 300,000 to 400,000 RMB price range. And other than NIO, those 3 are the dominant ones. Zeekr placing on the upper end or the highest price range. But I wanted to share this and just talk about, you know, what this means, because I did a video, I think it was coming into the year, talking about the pivot point possibly being this year of 2026. And it looks like it is shaping up that way. How exciting is it that we haven't even seen the numbers coming in from Onvo with the L80 or NIO with the ES9? And with that guidance from NIO, I think they are expecting very strong numbers, hopefully a 50 to 60,000 number in June. We'll know more as far as the expectation goes once we get the May numbers in. And again, that's the asterisk, is with Onvo L80, you know, almost half of a month of those numbers, they could be pretty strong. So we'll see what the numbers end up being in this month of May. But let me get this video up, and I will share the links in the description. I will create chapters or timestamps. I'm assuming this is this is a longer video. I talked forever. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, I did want to talk, and like I said, I haven't even reviewed the transcript, but I can't wait to get into it, to dig in and see what other nuggets I can pull out of there. Sorry, folks, I tried. You know, I was trying to call that shot back on March 31st, and it was a near miss. But I do think a lot of people were still surprised with how strong the numbers were in that first quarter for NIO. So coming back to stock price, just to make sure nothing crazy going on. No, definitely not. It'll be interesting to see. By the way, I started looking at the dark pool because I wanted to dig in and look at what was going on with this pre-market. But the reality is, my sort of expectation or assumption is that those are preset algos trading, high frequency algorithmic trading that goes on. And there are enough firms, and several of whom have gotten in trouble, and one of whom I've talked about that has had a put or a short position in NIO for years now. So, and they're a market maker, so they're going to do their thing. They're going to make their money. That's just the reality. I'll be curious when we're going to see them go long, and I wonder if it'll be in this year of 2026. Also, final note and thought, I'm waiting until later in the year. I'll probably do it cyclically around the same time, which was late July, I believe, of last year, when I pulled up and looked at the firms that had shorter put positions in both NIO and Alibaba, because I will be curious what that looks like and doing a year-over-year comparison. But anyway, NIO still relatively low trading volume. To me, to my mind, and it looks like subdued sentiment continues. And let's see what happens if that changes, with a monster delivery number in June. Either way, it's just more for me to study, research, learn, and nerd out on. So thanks for sticking around to the end. I know some of you did. I'll see y'all again very soon.